It has been 3 years after we had the NBA bubble, and I'm not gonna lie, over the past couple weeks, a lot of people have been making their own videos about what happened. Now, over the past couple weeks during the NBA offseason, some people have made their own videos talking about the bubble because the discourse of the actual talent was going on. I don't know why sporadically a lot of people just started to discredit the bubble or talk about, oh, this championship ring didn't count, or oh, this player wasn't actually that good at that time. And I'm gonna be honest, as much as I love to talk about basketball discourse, I really don't care to talk about that today. If you want a video like that, Dom2K just made a video like 10 days ago talking about the bubble and the discourse around it. If you want to check out his video right after mine, please do. Because today I want to talk about all of the just weird shit that happened in the bubble, because that time period was very weird and something I'm never going to forget. So let's go all the way back to 2020. As we know, 2020 was a very weird year, probably for a word that I don't know if I can say anymore, but it was basically because of COVID. But if we want to actually talk about why the bubble was even created, well, then we got to go back just a little bit to December 12th, 2019. It was discovered that there was some virus going on in China. It was these weird symptoms, but no one really cared about it at the time. It was like, oh, someone got sick. I mean, the details were very weird. Then a couple weeks later, it seemed like it was just some form of pneumonia. And then about a week after that, some places started closing, and then they came up with a new name called virus or whatever the fuck you want to call it. And then sometime in mid-January, it actually came out that this virus was actually in America. Now, I'm sure you know what happened in March. The NBA was late in the season. They were getting ready for the playoffs. And then all of a sudden there was that weird moment in the OKC game where everything just stopped. Like there was a bunch of security that was on the floor. The game had to be canceled. And all of a sudden the OKC Thunder and Utah Jazz were in the locker room. It was a very weird experience. I planned to make an entire video going over that like 48-hour period because it was a very scary time. But for this video, the most important details were the fact that Rudy Gobert had COVID, and it came out not too long after that the NBA was going to be shut down. Some more details came out about certain players who had it, for example, Donovan Mitchell. But now the NBA was in a very weird time. They had to decide whether they wanted to keep the season going a couple weeks later, or if there was some long-term alternative that they needed to come up with. I need you guys to remember, at the time, there was no vaccine despite how many people are against it. There was no real timeline on when this virus was going to end. This was something that could have lasted 1 month or 1 year, and honestly I'm pretty sure it was longer than that. After March 11th, the NBA took a while to decide what they were going to do, and there was rumors speculating that they could possibly come up with a bubble concept. The concept of the bubble was simple. They were going to be in a big ass enclosed area where they were going to have healthcare workers working there, and they were not going to be allowed to go outside. Basically, they just wanted to wrap up the season and have it be done, because the following season was supposed to start in around October, so they didn't have much time left. The rumor that a lot of people are hearing on where it was going to actually be played was Walt Disney World in Orlando, Florida. And I'm not gonna lie, it didn't sound like a terrible idea. They had a really big hotel, they did have areas where they could play basketball, and overall that sounds like a really cool experience. However, looks can be deceiving, but we're gonna talk about that a little bit later in the video. The point is now they needed to decide who is actually gonna be invited to the bubble. There were teams that were actually pretty close to making the playoffs, so it's not like they could just cut those teams off from having a chance to make it. They decided to invite 22 out of the 30 teams. The way you were able to get invited is if you were within 6 games of actually making the playoffs. It was also during this time where they came up with the concept of the play-in game. The play-in game involved the 10 and 9 seed actually having a chance to make the playoffs. I understand the play-in game being implemented at that time because there were so many missed games. However, the fact that they kept this going in the future, I'm not really sure how I feel about it. Now, there were a lot of mixed reactions with the bubble. For example, some players weren't even going to show up due to health concerns, which was fair. And then there were some players that were open to the idea, especially the ones that just really wanted to play ball. Because remember, at this time it was June. They had gone months without playing basketball, and the idea of the season was still fresh in their mind. Now, how the bubble was going to work is they were going to have 3 exhibition games, and then they were going to have the playoffs. Now that you have a basic understanding of not only how the bubble is created and kind of how it was set up, but now I actually want to talk about some of the things that actually happened. I want to go over some of the narratives that were going on. I want to talk about some of the funny ass things that happened, some of the weird moments, and then at the end I'll do a recap of the playoffs going into the finals. And then finally, we can cap off by answering one big question. Was the bubble a fraudulent ring? Now, very quickly, I want to talk about, did the bubble actually work? And not in the basketball sense, like did anyone actually get COVID? And I'm not gonna lie, not a single person got COVID. which I think is a fucking amazing thing that they were able to do. I mean, remember, they had 22 teams, not just the players, but the staff, the coaches, everyone that was working on that team. On top of that, if you made it to a certain point in the playoffs, you actually got to bring on a family member. So shout out to the healthcare workers that were actually able to get that done. That is very impressive. I'm sure at that time you had a better chance of winning the lottery than avoiding having one single COVID case with an area that had over 1,500 people. Now, there are a couple small things I want to talk about that were kind of funny that I'm not going to really turn into a segment, but they're just random shit. Also, mind you, everything that I'm talking about here is not in order. It's just the time I think about it, except until we get the playoffs. That'll be in order. But this stuff, I'm just thinking of it sporadically. Remember, I don't script my videos. I just think of shit as I go. Keep that in mind. Okay, so one of the first things I remember is Rashawn Holmes was suspended for a while because he got a DoorDash order. I'm not even joking. And for anyone that was curious on where it was, I don't know where the fuck he ordered from, and I'm not even sure how they got the order to there. That's a pretty impressive DoorDash driver. Now, when I meant suspended, in reality, he just had a quarantine for 10 days, which was the normal procedure. Also, you might be saying like, oh, they were in Disneyland. Didn't they have really good food? At the start of the bubble, they had to do some quarantine period and they didn't have all the food set up, so it was kind of ass, not gonna lie. I mean, there were some videos that came out. I think Joel Embiid showed a video of how disgusting the food looked at first. There was also another player that broke the rules named Bruno Caboloco. There's no way I pronounced that right. Now, what Bruno did was kind of weird. He didn't know about the 48-hour quarantine period that you had to do before actually entering the bubble itself. Unlike Rashawn Holmes, he only had to be quarantined for 8 more days, which I guess is understandable because I don't think he actually made contact with anybody else. Now, somebody that did something that was very stupid and something that could have been avoided was Daniel House. Now, unlike Rashawn and Bruno, this didn't happen right as the bubble started, you know, oopsie, you make a mistake, whatever. No, this was during the NBA playoffs versus the Los Angeles Lakers. I can't make this up. Anyways, Daniel House was kicked from the bubble. No, he wasn't suspended. He was kicked from the bubble entirely. Reason being, well, he brought in an unauthorized guest. Remember, I said early in the video, you were allowed to bring a family member if you made it to a certain point in the bubble, but this wasn't a family member from what we understood. It came out a couple weeks later, and this was just a rumor, I have to say this, but it was a rumor that it was some IG model. And to prove this, a TikTok came out about a couple weeks later from some TikToker that I've never heard about. Now, I'm not gonna lie, this was a very hard video to find, and there is only just this one video. I don't know if she even has social media anymore, but on the screener now, you're gonna see the video where she's actually in the bubble, and I'm not gonna lie, this does look pretty legit. Now, some people have said this is completely fake, and she was just trying to get some clout. I did actually see the videos of inside the NBA bubble, and I'm not gonna lie, it does look real in my opinion from what I've seen, but also someone could have easily faked this, so don't take my word for it. But yeah, Daniel House was kicked from the bubble for doing something pretty stupid, and he was actually a pretty important part of that Rockets team. Granted, they were down in the series and they were more likely going to lose, but still, that's pretty fucking stupid. Also, you reportedly paid her $7K to be here, which, come on, bro, man, you fucking simp, bro. What are you doing? Now, that was it for players that like got suspended. Let's talk about some of the fun shit that happened. First off, we had some YouTubers in the bubble, ladies and gentlemen. We had none other than JaVale McGee and Matisse Thybulle. Now, these two had YouTube channels that they were consistently posting vlogs on, and I'm not gonna lie, the difference between the two vlogs were very telling. First of all, JaVale was playing for the Lakers, and he actually had like people that were working for him on these vlogs. Like, for example, he had an editor, and he had some people, I think, behind the scenes helping him with it. However, Matisse, he was playing on the Sixers, and he wasn't really well known. He was just a role player who was pretty solid. However, what I thought was interesting was Matisse was really focusing on the camera work, and it actually seemed like he knew how to vlog. Also, he was editing the videos by himself. He also said he was inspired by Casey Neistat, which made sense. If you had to ask me which one I enjoyed the most, and I actually want to hear in the comment section what you guys think, but me personally, I was more of a fan of Matisse's. It seemed like it was just some kid recording shit and was really good at it. On top of that, he just happened to play in the NBA. I'm not gonna lie, if Matisse ever fails as an NBA player, he's gonna be one hell of a fucking vlogger. Now, I do think that JaVale McGee had the more popular vlogs, and the reason why was simple. He was playing for the Lakers. I mean, getting to see that Lakers team from an inside perspective was something we didn't have, and it was honestly pretty cool to see. Remember, this Lakers team was projected to win the NBA Finals, so imagine getting to see the perspective of them possibly winning the finals. That's pretty fucking cool. Honestly, as someone that was just starting to become a content creator during that time, I was very interested in it, and I'm not gonna lie, it actually made me want to start vlogging, which I don't know if you guys know this, but I do have a second channel, so yeah, quick little promo on that. I might start vlogging soon. But no, seriously, it was really cool to see two vloggers that were in the bubble that were also playing basketball at the same time. Now, something else we have to talk about is the Phoenix Suns, and I know some of you are probably grown groaning right now like, oh, the Phoenix Suns, who cares? But I'm not gonna lie, Phoenix had probably the weirdest yet most exciting run I've ever seen. So earlier I said that 22 teams were invited, and the way you were invited is if you technically were 6 games away from making the playoffs. Now, you making the bubble didn't guarantee a spot. Obviously, you needed certain things to go your way, just like the normal playoffs. But hypothetically, the Suns needed to go undefeated just for a chance to make the playoffs. Now, as a Suns fan, I was very excited to see this, not because I thought the Suns were going to make the playoffs. I just wanted to see my team play. I had missed them. It had been a while. Now, remember, the Suns needed to go 8-0 for just a chance to make the playoffs, and what happened was very surprising to just about anybody.
Your head, but it's successful more often than not. Ayton again being spoon-fed.
Wow, Devin and DeAndre Ayton's out. That's a heck of a pass there.
Still play. Booker, this is going to win. Got it. Johnson to force another Pacers miss. Rubio on the drive again. 6 points. Booker on it. Steps into the deep three.
Sneaky athleticism.
Sneaky.
Some whistle probably, and then here comes a nice pass, and it goes from Bridges to...
Now, unfortunately for Phoenix, they missed the playoffs because they didn't get the tiebreaker in their way. They actually needed Brooklyn to win a game, but they did not, unfortunately. But all this did was prove that Phoenix had a really bright future ahead of them. Remember, if this did not happen, I don't know if Chris Paul joins the Suns. Chris Paul was on OKC at this time, and I think he was very impressed by what he saw on Phoenix. I mean, imagine Phoenix having a veteran point guard to help them out. Also, that Devin Booker game winner versus the Clippers, I think showed everyone that Booker is a lot better than what they thought. Booker's run in the bubble actually led him to possibly being considered to be the bubble MVP. And I know if he would have won it, people would have been like, oh, Mickey Mouse MVP, because, you know, he wasn't the season MVP, but of the actual bubble. But still, I think it would have been cool, but I think that actually went to Dame, which made sense. He fucking killed it. Also, I think it is going to be cool that forever, unless there's another bubble, the Phoenix Suns were the only team to go undefeated in the bubble. It was also the start of a brand new era. One of the other things I remember is that Jimmy Butler started his own coffee stand. I'm not gonna lie, that was a pretty funny time. I think he was charging like 20 bucks for a cup of coffee. It actually did inspire him to start his own coffee store, which I think is actually a real thing. I'm pretty sure he has a website and everything. You know what? Fuck it. If this video gets 1,000 likes, I'll buy his coffee and I'll do a review on my channel. I mean, it'll probably just be like at the end of a video, but still, I will drink his coffee on a video. Now, there's one more thing I want to talk about that is kind of serious, but the mental health aspect of the bubble. Now, I understand there are two arguments. There are two sides to this topic. Either A, people feel bad for some of the players because of some of the stuff they went through, and the other side is like, oh, you're NBA players, you're supposed to adjust, stop being pussies. Now, the way I feel about it is honestly pretty simple. I believe that mental health was something that did affect some of the play with some of the players. For example, do you remember when Paul George was just fucking ass in the bubble? And I mean ass. Paul George has had his moments where he chokes, but I think this was really something we had never seen before. And when he talked about his mental health and how he was feeling, I can understand his perspective. I have never been in a situation where I had to be away from 0 people whatsoever and be in an enclosed area for quite some time. And I know what you're gonna say, oh, but it wasn't a prison. They were at Disney World. They were in this very big area. You have to understand that over time, the concept of being a bubble does get to your head. Well, yes, there is this big area. There is still a very bigger area that you cannot go to. When you leave that bubble, you basically are sacrificing a lot of stuff, and it doesn't help anyone. Now, with that being said, I think LeBron said it was like a prison or something, which I don't think it was a prison per se. I do think mentally it is hard to be without your family for a long period of time, and some players probably did struggle a little bit, but at the same time, it wasn't like a fucking prison, alright? Let's be serious. But I do think there is a middle ground with this claim that yes, mental health was very important during the bubble. Something else that I forgot to talk about, and I'm only going to talk about briefly, was the activism that was going on during the bubble. The NBA really focused on the Black Lives Matter movement, and they were letting teams kneel. They were having these shirts. You could actually on your jersey have sayings like equality, lives matter, things of that nature. I genuinely thought it was a really cool thing that the NBA was doing, that they were letting players, you know, express the way they felt. A lot of players really did care about this movement, and I can respect that, especially that the NBA was backing this. You could say it's political, you could say, oh, the NBA had no choice, but regardless, they did that. that, and I think that's what matters. Now, there is also something that is very important that I almost forgot to talk about, and we have to talk about Michael Jordan, or I mean TJ Warren. If you guys remember, there was a time period in the bubble where TJ Warren was genuinely the best player in the NBA, and I'm not joking. During the bubble, in about 10 games, he averaged about 26 points per game on pretty decent shooting, but I think what most people remember is the fact that he scored 53 points in one game. I don't know how that happened. It was funny to see, but I'm not gonna lie, I think all the bubble did was show how great players can be, because we had a lot of weird sporadic performances that just made no sense to me. I mean, do y'all remember when people thought Bubble was gonna break the NBA? Also, there was one more thing that involved Jamal Murray. No, I'm sorry. I can't talk about that on my channel, man. But all jokes aside, let's actually get into the playoffs and do a little bit of a recap. So this is what the bracket looked like, starting with the NBA play-in games. Okay, so it turns out it was actually game because I looked for like 30 minutes, and unless I'm like really dumb, apparently there wasn't an Eastern Conference play-in game. I don't know why I thought there was. I'm not gonna lie, it was solely because of Damian Lillard that Trailblazers team made the playoffs. Now that we actually have the final bracket, let's actually get into some games. Starting with the East, in round 1, the Bucks destroyed the Orlando Magic 4-1 in the series, moving on to the semifinals. Despite the Pacers having Michael Jordan on their team, it was not enough, and the Miami Heat would sweep. That's right, they would gentlemen sweep the Pacers 4-0. The Celtics would also sweep the 76ers, which was very disappointing because the Sixers had potential. And finally, the defending champion Toronto Raptors would sweep the Brooklyn Nets 4-0. Moving on to the West, despite Damian Lillard having one of the craziest runs of his career, the Lakers would win 4-1. Now the Rockets and Thunder, that actually went to 7 games, and in one of the most interesting game 7s I've ever seen, the Rockets would win barely after this James Harden play. Denver and Utah would have one of the best playoff series I've ever seen in just playoff history all around. I mean, Jamal Murray and Donovan Mitchell were going at it, but unfortunately for Donovan Mitchell, the Nuggets would win 4-3. In the second round, things got very interesting. The Miami Heat would destroy the Milwaukee Bucks 4-1. Mind you, Milwaukee was the 1 seed, and a lot of people thought they were going to go to the finals that year. Boston and Toronto would get in a 7-game series where the defending champions would fall to the Celtics 4-3, having Miami and Boston in the Eastern Conference Finals. In the West, the Lakers would destroy the Rockets 4-1. And finally, the Clippers and the Nuggets got into a pretty interesting series. The Clippers were up 3-1, and then Doc Rivers did what he did best. He choked the series, and so did his players, and the Nuggets came back and won in 7. Goddamn, basketball was a very fucking weird thing during that time. In the conference finals, starting in the East, we had the Miami Heat beating the Celtics 4-2. And I'm not gonna lie, I don't think anybody thought Miami was actually going to make the finals. Now, the Lakers and Nuggets was supposed to be a good series. I mean, Jamal Murray and Jokic were doing their thing, but unfortunately for them, the Lakers would win 4-1. That meant we had the Miami Heat and the Lakers in the NBA Finals. The Lakers would go up 3-1, but in Game 5, things got interesting where Jimmy Butler himself was trying to carry this team, and he actually did. The series got to 3-2, however, in Game 6, a game that a lot of people thought could go very interesting, the Lakers just destroyed the Heat. That meant the Lakers were your 2020 NBA champions. Now, a lot of people had a lot of reactions about this, saying, oh, it's a fake ring, it doesn't count, it was in the bubble, Mickey Mouse. But in reality, this is what I have to say about that. Yes, it was a different environment, and I do understand the game was slightly different than what people were used to. But at the end of the day, I feel like any ring is a ring no matter what the circumstances are. Every single championship you can think of has some sort of asterisk in it. I mean, the most random one I can think about, 2021, the year after, there were so many injuries. And granted, I still count that Bucks ring as a real ring. I mean, even in 2012, the lockout year, I still count that as a real ring. I think if you win a ring, you win a ring. It is disingenuous to take that away. Of course, we could have the argument about which one was harder, whether it's the mental side or the strength of schedule, but I don't really care. I do think that LeBron and the Lakers deserved that ring. I think a lot of people forget that they were the 1 seed. They were the best defense in the NBA before the season got shut down. That team was going to win regardless of the bubble. If they had to play in the bubble or the regular NBA where everything was normal, I still think they would have won. Honestly, they were my pick to win the finals before anything else got started. This team was easily the best team in the NBA despite what people might tell you. And I know there were certain circumstances that were different, but still, I don't think it matters. I think a lot of the people that try to discredit the bubble just don't like the fact that LeBron won it. If the Nuggets would have won, or the Heat, or the Bucks, the Celtics, do I think the discourse would have been different? I think it's possible. And mind you, I am someone that has never liked LeBron. My dad was a big Bulls fan, and the Heat and Bulls had their thing, and I'm a giant Suns fan, and it's fuck the Lakers till the day I die. But I'm sorry, you have to appreciate greatness when it happens. And as much as people are gonna try to discredit, I think the bubble was a real ring, and I think the overall experience of the bubble was interesting basketball. Now with that being said, was there anything in the bubble that I missed that I should have talked about? In the comment section below, I want you to tell me, what was your favorite moment from the bubble? What was something, whether it was a performance or just a funny moment that happened in general? And if the NBA were to be in another situation where there is a bubble, because it seems like every 4 years there's some kind of epidemic and we're 1 year away, what do you think would happen if we had another bubble? Put it in the comment section below. And if you guys want to see a video about a team that was actually not invited to the bubble, which was the Golden State Warriors, well, click the video on the screen right here because they are finished, ladies and gentlemen.